Okay, so everyone, welcome to the Monday night call on the GLP1. I'm Jason Paget. I'm the founder of KMD, and tonight we're so happy um, to introduce you guys to the newest member of our corporate team. Her name is Andrea Meisinger, and she is a coach on peptides and obesity, and she is unbelievable. So, and she is going to answer all of your questions, and she's going to tell you tonight the value of what ConnectMD is doing, not only the price point and the opportunity for you guys, but also exactly what GLP-1 does and how it benefits everybody. So you guys, when you go out to the field, you're very knowledgeable about what you're talking about because I know this is new to a lot of people. So I'm going to turn this call over to her, and then in the end, I will go over the pricing and all of that kind of stuff. So you guys, so the people out there that you share this with will have all the pricing information. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrea.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you. I'm super excited. I always joke with people. They ask me how long I've been using GLP-1 medicines, and my standard answer is before the Kardashians made it popular. So I have been in the health and wellness space all my life. Ever since I was 17 years old, my first job was a CNA in a local hospital, and I've just worked my way up the ranks, and I've done a little bit of everything in healthcare. I've been in the wellness space. I've done network marketing for different health and wellness products. And now I currently own my own telehealth business doing very similar to what ConnectMD does, but I'm super happy to partner with all of you and really just share my knowledge and insight with not only you, but people that are interested in GLP-1s that maybe they don't know what they are. Maybe they've lived under a rock and they haven't heard the name Ozempic or semaglutide or tirzepatide. I had a lady one time tell me she's never heard of GLP-1s, and I asked her if she had a television or a smartphone because literally it's everywhere, mainstream today, and everybody's talking about it. And the reason that they're talking about it is because it truly works. It is one of the best finds in recent medical research, in my opinion, that does so much more than just help people fight the battle of the bulge and be able to get down to a normal BMI or a healthy weight. And we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And I just kind of want to share an overview very similar to what I talk about with my patients when they come to see me, but I also just kind of want to coach you guys and help you not only better understand GLP-1s, but learn how to better position these conversations with people that you might know or run across in your everyday lives. Because, like I said earlier, these medications do so much more than just fight the battle of obesity. They really are truly giving patients their health and wellness back. And I am a huge proponent of GLP-1 use in many different modalities with different health concerns, not just with weight loss. So, without further ado, let's get into the science a little bit. And I'm a huge science nerd, so I'll try to keep it keep it to a minimum. But I could go on and talk about these things all day, every day, which I do. So anyway. Without further ado, so our bodies, you guys, are comprised of literally thousands of different peptides, and peptides are nothing more than short chain amino acids or little protein molecules that form in various molecular structures to do a wider range of roles in the body. They're really responsible for hormonal roles, chemical roles, cellular division, you name it, peptides are responsible for that. But over time, our peptide levels can be depleted for a number of reasons. Some of the most common reasons are your genetics. I mean, those are the things we can't control, right? Our age and our genetics, and those play a big factor in the decline of our body's ability to manufacture its own peptide levels. But also stress, hormonal changes, what we put in and on our body, all of those things, lack of sleep, all of those things, and a host of others really attribute to our body's inability to naturally keep these peptide levels high. And when it comes to weight, when it comes to the number on the scale, when it comes to the way our body is able to metabolize the foods that we put into it, there's two very, very important peptides that come into play that our body naturally produces in the small intestine. And those two peptides are called GLP and GIP. Again, normally formed in the small intestine, but they do a couple really important roles as far as the endocrine system is concerned and our metabolic system is concerned. So first and foremost, GLP and GIP, those two peptides work in conjunction with our pancreas, and they really help our pancreas in its ability to naturally produce healthy, effective insulin. Insulin is a hormone that we need every single day. Without it, you would die a very painful death in 3 to 4 days. And this is why type 1 diabetics are so brittle, because their body doesn't make it and they rely on it from an outside source. But it literally is our body's only way of breaking down the nutrients that we put into our body, or the nutrients that are stored in the form of fat, and converting that to cellular energy. So that's why our cells start to die if we don't have, or they start to have cellular dysfunction, if we don't have that kind of lock and key system where insulin is the key to unlock the lock of the cell, which pushes that energy into the cell so we can live and thrive and survive. So we want that insulin to work really, really good in being able to break down all of those nutrients and get energy in the cell. But what happens is when our GLP and GIP levels start to decline over time, when we start to put bad nutrition into our body and we don't feed our body the way that it was designed to be fed, what happens is the insulin stops working as effectively as it used to. And our body is constantly, or the pancreas specifically in the body, is constantly working harder and harder and harder to make more of this kind of ineffective insulin. But it's going to need a larger quantity to be able to keep the blood sugars lower, to be able to get the appropriate nutrients into the cell, and so on and so forth. And as time goes and that GIP and GLP level continue to decline, our pancreas is constantly being taxed harder and harder every single day to produce more and more insulin, until it finally says, hey, listen, I'm working as hard as I can down here. I can't produce any more insulin. And that's when we start to see people's blood sugar creep up over time. Or, the earlier signs of that would be a higher level of blood sugar, kind of like a roller coaster. When you go up the hill, it stays higher longer. And when that happens in the body and our blood sugar remains more elevated over time, we start to create a host of chaos in the body. Cellular chaos, we start to create a cytokine reaction. So with that, that causes inflammation in the body. And when blood sugar is flowing through our cells and it's not uptaken by the cells and used at the cellular level, we have sugar flowing through our veins. It's almost like shards of glass in the vessels, and they cause dings and dents and all of those kind of things inside the blood vessel, and that creates scarring and clotting. And this starts to create end organ damage, because those little teeny vessels that are down in your kidneys or in your lungs or in your heart, they start to get inflamed and they close down, so less blood supply can get through those vessels. And so this is when we see people with elevated blood sugars, even though it might not be that elevated, where a provider might want to put somebody on insulin, the damage is already done by the time people get on a lot of medications and they get on insulin. They already have this end organ damage and these vessels that are sclerotic and scarred up, and people aren't getting the blood supply to their brain or their extremities or whatever organ might be involved. And so we want to prevent that from happening. And the way that we prevent that from happening is we cause the blood sugar to be lower, because the insulin is working more effectively. And until now, people were always taught to exercise more, eat less, eat healthier, all of those kind of things. But really, the root cause of whether you're 5 pounds or you're 500 pounds overweight goes back to the principle of insulin resistance. And that's what I just described, where the pancreas is producing more and more and more insulin every single day until finally it can't make enough. This is the first ever opportunity for us to be able to really truly reverse insulin resistance in patients. Before, we were just kind of putting band-aids on big gaping bullet holes, and it with for a real lack of other options. And we'd give medications to try to get people's blood sugar down and things of that nature, but we weren't able to affect the inflammation, which, by the way, inflammation, you'll hear me talk a lot about inflammation in pretty much every discussion I ever have about health and wellness, because inflammation really is the root of all illness. It really starts at the very cellular level, when before disease even starts, neurovascular or cognitive decline, cardiovascular issues, all of those things are caused by an inflammatory response in the body. And you'd be really encouraged because, again, when the endocrine system functions more appropriately, which is basically the food and the fuel of our body, when that system functions more efficiently and effectively, we're able to provide the nutrients to all of the cells and be able to maintain health and wellness. So going back, this GLP and GIP, when the levels are low and we have this insulin resistance, really until we treat that insulin resistance, patients might be able to lose 5, 10, 15, or even 20 pounds here or there with a calorie deprivation diet or intermittent fasting or keto or Weight Watchers or whatever current protocol is out there. They might be able to lose a few pounds, but until we treat that root cause problem, which is that insulin resistance, really nothing that patients are going to do is going to be long lasting or sustaining over time. Usually, if you think about your past, I mean, because if you're here, I would venture to believe that at some point in your life you've done some kind of a nutritional plan or diet or exercise in order to lose a few pounds. What happens when you stop doing that? You regain all of your weight plus about 10 or 15 more pounds, right? And so we want to prevent that from happening. And really, the only way to do that is by replacing what the body is deficient in, and that is that GLP and GIP. So I should back up and talk a little bit about the two different options that we have for we have one option, which is semaglutide. That's the generic for the medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, Trulicity. You've probably heard of all of those medications on a commercial. You turn on a TV, I think one out of every three commercials this day and age is on some kind of a pharmaceutical, coaching patients what to ask for at their doctor's office. But those medications are the brand name of what we provide for the generic option of semaglutide. So semaglutide is just a straight GLP-1 medication, and that stands for glucagon-like peptide. So we're producing something or doing something that our body already produces. The other option that we have is tirzepatide, and that's what we call a dual incretin hormone or a peptide. It has both the GLP-1, so tirzepatide has semaglutide in it, but it also has another very important component called GIP. GIP is that second peptide that's formed in the small intestine, and again, it provides with it a host of benefits. The other way that these medications work, and really the GIP, when we couple that with GLP, really magnifies the intensity of the GLP peptide itself. And one of the ways that it does that, and GLP, excuse me, or semaglutide does it a little bit, but it's often more intense when it's coupled with GIP or tirzepatide is given. It works in conjunction with two very important hormones that our stomach naturally releases. And those are called leptin and ghrelin. And ghrelin is the hormone that is released by the stomach that signals the brain that we're hungry. I don't know if you've ever heard your tummy growl, but that's actually the sound of the stomach releasing ghrelin. It's a physical sound of releasing ghrelin. And that ghrelin is oftentimes left unchecked when GLP and GIP levels are down, ghrelin surges. So we constantly feel hungry. We constantly feel like we have to have a snack. We're constantly thinking about food. And I have this discussion with my patients a lot. I kind of give them this analogy, and it actually was my analogy before I successfully lost 63 pounds using these GLP-1 medications. This is what I found myself doing every single night. I would be really good all day long and really watch what I was eating and try to eat really healthy. And then the nighttime would come, I'd eat supper, maybe after dinner, a well-balanced meal. And after dinner was cleared, the dishes were done, the laundry was done. An hour later, I would sit down and watch TV or read a book or what have you. And I'd find my mind wandering, oh, I could use a snack. Or I remember there's some Snickers candy bars out in the kitchen that I could get into. And I'd find myself eating a snack just an hour after getting done with dinner. Well, physically, if you know anything about digestion, the food has not even been digested within 1 hour of eating. It's still all sitting there in the stomach, and there would be no reason to be hungry at that point. But this is the power, or this demonstrates the power of what the ghrelin hormone does to our brain. It makes us think we're hungry when we're really not. It makes us want food when we're bored or we're sad or we're happy and we're out with our friends. It's what really drives our brain to think about food. And on the flip side of things, leptin level, when ghrelin level is very high, leptin is the counterbalancing hormone released by the stomach that when we eat a big meal, and I always tell people to think of Thanksgiving, how do you feel about an hour after you get up from the table at Thanksgiving, on Thanksgiving afternoon? You're stuffed, right? You're like, I don't even want to think about food again. I'm not going to eat for a whole day. I'm just absolutely full. That's actually leptin triggering your brain that you need to stop eating because the stomach is distended, it's full, and you don't need more food. So when ghrelin is high and leptin is low, what do you think happens? People eat and they eat constantly, they snack, they get into things, they have cravings. And so we want to really rebalance those two particular hormones. And the only way to really do that is through augmenting or elevating people's GLP and GIP levels. So that's why they talk about this as a leptin-like response. So it very much emulates our body's own leptin and helping to raise that level. So we don't think about food. A lot of people that are on these medications, you'll hear them talk about how they're not thinking about food, or the thought of food makes them want to, get sick, or it repulses them. And these are also two very important hormones that come into play when we talk about that area of the brain that has kind of a dopamine-like reception in it. When we eat food, we find pleasure, right? Well, that's the same thing that holds true with people that have addictions, whether it's alcohol or street drugs or shopping or gambling. All of those things are addictive habits that center the frontal cortex of the brain. And so when we look at those patients and we have leptin rising and we're affecting those target areas of the brain, a lot of times you'll have patients that maybe have been a long time smoker or drinker or shopping. I mean, I can relate to that, right? Show me a good sale and I'll want to go shopping. But honestly, those patients report that they don't have that pleasure associated with those activities or those substances like they used to. Well, let's face it, food is an addiction, just like smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol or any other thing. So it's blocking or stunting that area of the brain. And there's a lot of incredible research out there on using these GLP-1 medications in very low dose to help with addictive patterns and properties. And I have a lot of patients and have experienced a lot of conversations with individuals that say they don't have the same thought process or thinking about the same things that provide them with pleasure as they might have when they are on these medicines. So whether it's semaglutide or it's tirzepatide, there's a lot of things going on. It's kind of a 1-2 punch, I say. Not only are we treating that underlying insulin resistance, but we're also helping to re-regulate some hormones and how they affect the brain and the pleasure receptors of the brain. So I want to get into just a little bit about a lot of times there's kind of this stigma on these medications out there that tell people that you're going to have these negative side effects, or you're going to need to be on this for the long term. And what I really like about the program that we offer here is it is a very well thought out methodical process that not only provides patients with these medications, but also there's a lot of additional information and some things that I'm going to be working to help get out to patients in the field is a lot of education on how, while these medicines are kind of fixing the issue behind the scenes, what do we need to be doing as far as healthy lifestyle is concerned, activity, nutrition, and things like that. This is what I tell almost every single one of my patients that ever consults me. I talk about how these medications are like a set of crutches. When you break your leg, the crutches, you're usually put on crutches, right? The crutches don't heal the leg itself, but they allow the leg time to heal. So this is what we're doing with these medications. Not only are we fixing some of these underlying issues that need to be fixed, but we're also allowing people time to gain new healthy lifestyle options, to learn more about what they should be fueling their body with, or what they should and shouldn't be eating. How much should they be eating? A lot of people just use hunger as a barometer of how much food they should be putting in their mouth, and they couldn't be farther from the truth. So we're really going to be upping the game a little bit in the education that these patients have in order to be successful for the long term. Now, some patients will stay on GLP-1s, and the reason that they stay on them lifelong is because a lot of times people have a lot of underlying disease processes in which these medications help with. So there's a lot of studies out there, the Surpass, the Surmount trials, all of those trials are indicating as time goes on and we're looking at larger patient populations, we're looking at the longer term options of people on these medicines, they're showing a lot of long-term benefits. I touched on one of them before, inflammation. These GLP-1 medications are a very, very powerful tool in the battle against inflammation. People can have inflamed bodies for 100 different reasons. Some people have one of 100, and some people could probably have 100 of 100. Let's face it, we live in a society where we're constantly stressed out. We're trying to do more with less hours. We're not sleeping as good. In and of itself, those issues completely elevate people's cortisol levels, which cause a host of inflammation in the body. They result in very, very bad things happening in the body. So we want to be able to suppress some of those issues from happening. And one of the ways that we can do that is through GLP-1 medications. Because these medicines help to suppress inflammation, there is a lot of other benefits that they have on other organs and other systems. A lot of the trials that are out there now are looking at cardiovascular risk factors and how the use of GLP-1 medications is not only reducing inflammation from a cardiovascular standpoint, but it's actually helping the heart muscle in and of itself improve its function. So we look at contractility of the muscle. When the muscles are fed with the nutrients that they need, when they're getting oxygen supply and they're getting nutrients and all of those things, it's functioning much, much better. I actually have a very well-renowned cardiac surgeon that I've known for many, many, many years, and he's placing every single one of his patients that, unless they're underweight, which most of his patients are, he's placing people on low-dose GLP-1 medications to help preserve cardiac muscle and improve cardiac function, which I think is absolutely incredible. So again, here we see it being used for off-label, which I really, truly, professionally think that in the coming years, they're going to increase the indications for which this medicine can be used. Another big bonus of the GLP-1 medicines is that they are finding that it's very neuroprotective. So it's protecting the brain. Again, I don't know if you've heard much about Alzheimer's, but they're calling that type 3 diabetes now, the early onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. And there's a lot of association between inflammation, elevated blood sugars that are pretty big predictors of individuals developing Alzheimer's and other neurocognitive conditions such as that. So they're using these medicines to help people that maybe are more prone or have a family history or an underlying issue of early onset. They're using these medicines to really provide some pretty incredible neuroprotection as well. So there's a host of other benefits. Again, everything can be traced back to inflammation in the body. And so a lot of times I'll have patients that have various inflammatory conditions such as asthma, irritable bowel or Crohn's, things like that, that oftentimes, or rheumatoid arthritis, other autoimmune disorders, that will tell me that they have not had a flare or an issue since starting these medications. And for them, this becomes a lifelong process because they're actually reducing or mitigating any kind of disease. Also, we're really finding that a lot of times people that have underlying hypertension, elevated blood pressure, elevated cholesterol levels, a lot of those patients are being able to get off of those pharmaceutical treatments and be able to sustain that for the long term. So anytime somebody can take less medications, it's usually better because there's less side effects and risk factors. So these medicines are really popular. For those of you who don't know, I'm assuming everybody here probably knows, but they are a once a week injection that is given subcutaneously. So I tell patients that it's a very small insulin syringe. Usually you pinch a little bit of fat in an area where we have some fat, the side of the leg, side of the arm, side of the belly. And we do injections, and their titration schedule is really dependent upon the conversation that they have between them and their provider as far as increasing their dose or maintaining on a maintenance type dose. But we don't ever want to get into those conversations, as most of us aren't medical professionals, but just so you kind of have an underlying understanding of what maybe some of those people that you're referring to, the physicians at ConnectMD, are undergoing. Those are the kind of conversations that they're having with those providers. They're talking about how suppressed is their appetite, how much weight have they lost, are they seeing good results? How's their energy levels? Things like that that really play a factor into whether people need more medicine. Maybe they need less medicine, or they can stay on the same dose. So really, really incredible things that GLP-1 medications provide for a lot of patients with a host of various issues. It's just not for people that have elevated blood sugars or are overweight. And I think that we'll again see a lot of other indications for the use of these medicines as they're studied a little bit more intensely and they start to look at other disease processes here down the road. So that's kind of the brief overview of how I talk to the patients about what this medicine is and what it does. And I really stress on the fact that we're treating root cause problems. We're not just trying to mask an issue with yet another issue, which so much of modern medicine does today. We take this one pill to treat this, but then we got to take 3 more to combat the side effects or the issues that occur because we're on that one medicine. So just know that getting a person in, getting them assessed for these medicines, you're not going to go wrong, because a lot of times the over resounding thing that I hear from a lot of patients that I treat is this is life changing, and a lot of people will thank you for giving them their life back, not only from a physical and health and wellness standpoint, but from a personal standpoint, just feeling more comfortable inside their own body, feeling sexy, feeling great again, giving them more energy. When you nourish the cells, you have a tendency to think clearly and to have more energy throughout the day. So I'm really, really excited to be here and to partner with all of you guys and help with anything that I can help along the way. So.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrea. That is Unbelievable the knowledge you have on this. I would like to ask one question because I'm going to share my screen here in a minute and go over the pricing. Can you let everybody know what the normal from the time you pay for your visit, pay for your blood work, and then get your medicine, what that's running a month bes
Yeah.
outside of
Besides here, yeah, I mean, it can be astonishing, astronomical, and it's really astonishing that people are paying some of the things that they're paying. But I've had a lot of patients want the brand name before, like Monjaro or Zepbound or even Ozempic, and they go to the pharmacy if they can even get their hands on it. That they will, because a lot of times they'll come back, or I will e-scribe something to the pharmacy, and the pharmacy calls me back and says, well, we're not going to have that in for 3 months. Do you want to do something different here? But a lot of these medicines will range anywhere from and this is a copay, anywhere from $500 to $600, all the way up to $1,700 or $1,800. That's just the medication. So on top of that, you're having, weekly, monthly, every other week visits with your providers. Everybody pays a different price depending upon their insurance, if they even have insurance, which the majority of insurances, even though they list it on their compendium of drugs that they provide, a lot of times there's so many loopholes that these patients and these providers have to jump through. They eventually just throw their hands up in the air. But I would say on average, you're looking at lab work that I just submitted my lab work. So if I were to go to my physician and ask for those labs, and there was an indication to draw them, that's $500-600 worth of lab work there. And then, physician fees range anywhere from, if you're paying a copay, $25 all the way up to 100, 150, $250 per visit. So, and at the end of the day, you're getting basically, oh, I see you're doing good. This is your weight. Okay, see you later. Bye. If they're not giving you any of the education, they're not sitting down to talk to you about nutritional considerations, activities, tips and tricks, things to help you be more successful. Those things people are having to pay for with nutritionists and everything else. So the cost is in the thousands per month that many of these patients are paying out of pocket.
Right. Well, thank you so much. And I am so proud that, through the buying power that ConnectMD has and, all the physicians that we have, that ConnectMD has launched this fit membership. It's only $200 a month. And what you get for that $200 a month, you're going to get all of your doctor's visits included. You're going to get all of your lab testing. So when you go off to LabCorp or Quest, you're not going to pay a thing. You're going to get Coach Andrea all the time at ConnectMD. You're going to get nutrition and dietary coaching. And then they're going to deliver your script right to your front door. And the semaglutide, as she was saying, Andrea, what would you say 0.25 milligrams would be if you were just ordering it from a pharmacy?
Yeah, it really depends on what pharmacy, but again, but buyer beware on some of these things, depending on what compounding pharmacy that you're using. I would say most people on average are paying anywhere from $300 to $500 for just the very starting dose of semaglutide.
And our starting dose starts at $70 delivered. That's including shipping, handling, which shipping and handling on these is very expensive because it has to ship cool. And the tirzepatide, which there's just the full disclosure right now in the tirzepatide world, it was just taken off of the. Why don't you talk just a second about that, Andrea?
Yeah, so semaglutide's safe, and it's always going to be safe. When these manufacturers like Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, things like that, when they manufacture these, there is usually a patent that they put on these medicines, which goes for 7 years. Now, when semaglutide was first produced, the patent had some holes in it, and so this is how a lot of the compounding pharmacies are getting around these patents. And so semaglutide, because of the initial patents that were set up by these companies, it's safe. However, the Eli Lillys of the world, the Novo Nordises of the world saw what happened with semaglutide. So they really they tightened up their patent quite a bit. And compounding pharmacies were able to manufacture these medications, which, by the way, we should probably have a conversation on the safety of compounding pharmacies, because despite what people say, the majority of compounding pharmacies are safe. Some are much better than others, which you guys use absolutely incredible pharmacies. That's one of the things that sold me for coming over here and participating with all of this, is because you guys use two of the best pharmacies that I've ever, and I've vetted hundreds of compounding pharmacies. But they had less room for loopholes in the patent, and so Eli Lilly has I guess they were able to produce these medications because it was on national shortage or back order, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that the auto injectors that this medicine would go into, these brand name medicines would go into, a lot of the supplies or pieces and parts were hard to get from overseas, and so then they started manufacturing it in vials with a syringe, much like our compounding pharmacies sent out. So they took it off the national back order. Or the back order list, and it's when they do that, a lot of times there's a cease and desist that is issued, where these compounding pharmacies then have to stop manufacturing this medication. So for right now, there are several compounding pharmacies that adhere to that cease and desist right away. But because of how some of these medicines are manufactured, some of the additives, it makes the medication be slightly different than what the brand name is. So for now, we're hoping that they allow some pharmacies to keep manufacturing it, but this is a daily fluid. The situation is very fluid and it's changing daily. So it's something that I keep Jason abreast of, and we watch this every single day. So hopefully, with our fingers crossed, we'll be able to slide for a little while with tirzepatide, because really, honestly, at the end of the day, even though semaglutide is a very good drug, it has very good outcomes. Tirzepatide is kind of the Cadillac of the GLP-1 medicines, but there's some new things in the works too, with some new GLP-1 medications that hopefully will be on the market really soon. So,
But semaglutide is safe, so you guys can start tonight. You sign up and for the program, and like she said, there's so many other benefits to having semaglutide besides losing weight. So, and I'm sure we can use all of what semaglutide does. So another thing on whenever you're building, I just want you to know that so it's $199 per month. You're making your percentage off of the full $199.99 a month whenever you're building. So you're 15% on your front line. Everybody you introduce to this, you're going to make that percentage off of. And then on down, as you guys know, the commission structure. So this is a great way to help people. It's also a great way to put a lot of money in your pocket. So I'm going to do this really quick. I'm going to open this up for some questions that you guys might have for Andrea. And remember, please keep the questions on a coaching level, not on a doctor-patient level, because you guys are not her patients, so she can't answer medical questions that you might be having. So with that, I'm going to stop my share and just unmute your mic and ask away if you have any questions.
Andrea, can you touch on additional supplementation? Is it recommended? Do you just, in your experience, what are your thoughts on that?
yeah, so everybody's a little bit different, but a lot of times I coach my patients. There's definitely some supplements, minerals, vitamins, amino acids that people that take them during their weight loss journey have a lot better success, not only losing the weight, but also preventing some of the side effects from occurring. that can also set them up from a cellular and metabolic standpoint, that once they taper back down to like a maintenance dose or what have you, are going to be able to maintain the weight loss. And then just for overall general health and wellness. I would be happy to talk about what those are, but it definitely has really improved a lot of patients' outcomes when they nutritionally support themselves with some supplements as well.
Did anybody else have?
I don't have a question, but I would like to note that, as customers, they can refer 3 people and get their monthly fit membership. Is that included on this or no?
No, the 3 and free is not included on the GLP-1.
Okay, it's
Put
not
that
on
out.
this.
No,
Okay.
it's not on this one.
All right.
I was wondering, will this be made available to people who are 65 years old? I know that the other programs.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just said as long as people are medically qualified, there's no age requirements that for GLP-1 use or anything like that. Somebody put a comment in the I typed out a question in the comments. So she said, Andrea, have you had any patients with autoimmune conditions who have seen improvements with inflammation on GLP and GIP meds? You have no idea. This is kind of my little pet project. Yes, the answer is, the short answer is yes. The second answer is the reason that I still take GLP-1 medicines is I myself have autoimmune disorder and I can't live without this medicine. I went off for a short period of time once I hit my weight loss goal after losing 63 pounds, and my rheumatologist could not figure out for the life of her what changed, why I was having flares, why I was having issues, why I couldn't get out of bed. My pain was out of control. And the only thing that we could think about was that I stopped taking tirzepatide. So 2 weeks into retaking tirzepatide, I was symptom free. So that's how powerful this medicine is. Again, anecdotally, this is just my story, but I do treat a lot of patients that have autoimmune disorders that have a huge improvement in their inflammation.
Is it only injectable or is there any other way to receive the medication?
It's only injectable right now. However, in the next 90 days, I think we're going to have pill forms. But I'll just tell you this: I've taken it, and the injection is so much better because it's once a week, and and I think a lot of people will tell you, and Andrea will probably tell you, having it slowly move in your body versus just taking a pill and having it dissolve, it works so much better, and I think the results are better.
Yeah, one of the pharmacies that you guys currently use has a new, like a sublingual drop with very cool technology to it. So it's way better than like the oral pill. But I usually will caution patients on the use of oral because it's really only as good as your gut microbiome, which starts in your mouth. And so if your ability to absorb nutrients, absorb medications, those things, because you don't have a good, healthy gut microbiome, it's only going to work as good as your gut microbiome is. So most of the people that have some weight to lose or have some inflammation already have gut dysbiosis. And so it doesn't work as well. For maintenance, I do use some of the oral drops for maintenance for people, but hopefully we can explore some of those options later here in the very near future with ConnectMD too.
And what are the criterion to be medically qualified?
So that's up to your provider, but in general, I can talk in generalities. So the contraindications or the reasons that people could not use GLP-1 medicines is if they're a type 1 diabetic, because they don't make insulin, correct? So it's not going to have any effect on the insulin in and of itself. So we don't want anybody that has type 1 diabetes to take GLP-1 medicines. Also, if you have a history of neuroendocrine disorder, which if you have that, you know it. If you don't need to worry about it. It's an endocrine disorder. And then there's a very specific type of thyroid cancer, medullary thyroid cancer. That's a contraindication. Anecdotally, I look for that indication to go away in the very near future. The studies that were done on these medicines, every kind of study on any kind of medicines goes through a process, and these medicines are studied on rats, and that's kind of how they get their do's and their don'ts. But the reason that cancer diagnosis is a part of the contraindication is because in rats, their GLP1 receptors are on their thyroids. Ours are in our belly and in our brain. So it doesn't really have anything to do with the thyroid part of the endocrine system. But again, that indication is still up for now, but I do look as these studies go on in the future to see some of those indications change a little bit. So, but again, that would be up to the provider. And then we would want somebody that is just starting to be either overweight or in the obese category of the BMI. But if somebody's been on them, it's okay for people to take them in maintenance if they're of a normal weight. We would never want anybody to take them that's underweight. But again, I always will reference every time you hear me talk, it's up to the patient and the provider. And everybody's case differs slightly. So.
Any other questions?
Somebody asked if I recommend taking sermorelin or a lipotropic to be taken. I love them. I do specialize in peptides, and those are some conversations that hopefully we can have in the future. Additional use of ancillary products. I always tell people in the peptide world, 1 + 1 never equals 2. 1 + 1 a lot of times equals 5 or 10 if you have a patient or a provider, that knows how to stack peptides, how to use them in conjunction with one another. It's definitely going to help. One of the things that we oftentimes consider with GLP-1 use is if people are not getting enough protein in their daily nutrition, we sometimes can get concerned with muscle wasting. Medication or peptides, I should say, such as sermorelin, L-carnitine, glycine, things like that can help prevent that muscle wasting from occurring. I would rather teach patients to do it from a nutritional standpoint, but sometimes it's just not possible. So that's my take on that. And then Heather asked about, does GLP or GAP have an impact on gut dysbiosis? In a roundabout way, yes. The roundabout way is that, number one, it's reducing inflammation in the GI tract. And then also, if you think about what it does to people's nutrition, it kind of cuts out those cravings for sweets and carbs and things like that oftentimes lead to some dysbiosis. So yes, it does to a point, but like if people are having gut dysbiosis because they've taken years of antibiotics or they've had surgeries or what have you, I mean, there's a host of reasons that causes gut dysbiosis. I mean, you're only being able to really attack a percentage or a part of that. So healing the gut microbiome is a multifactorial approach. It's not just 1 or 2 medicines that can do that. There's a lot of factors that go into play with that. But that's a great question.
So Paula asked a question, do you work with our current primary doctors or do you have a doctor we work with? They're all the ConnectMD primary doctors. I think that's what you're asking. Just so everybody knows, Andrea is not one of our providers. She has come on board on the corporate level as a director of ConnectMD Fit, and she's going to be coaching, giving advice on, supplements, and she's just going to be steering everybody in the right direction for a healthy lifestyle, because we are going to create, I believe we've already have it created, a Facebook page that we are going to, all like-minded people are going to come in there and we're going to give support to each other. We're going to create a massive, wonderful culture around this because, people will stay for the culture and we want to help everybody become healthy and at the proper weight that they desire.
A lot of research is really indicating that when you do this with a group of people, whether it's a spouse, a friend, or you have some kind of a community, people are 10 times more likely to be successful and 50 times more likely to keep the weight off and maintain their healthy lifestyle when they have a community to support them. So, yeah, and I would even be happy. I mean, I don't want to overspeak here, but I'd even be happy to do just like introductory and explaining GLP-1s to potential people that you're referring in that don't know if they want to take the jump. You know, we can have some health and wellness calls that I can just do a high level of GLP-1 education and kind of what it is and what it does. And then hopefully that gets those people excited and they're like, hey, give me your link. I want to schedule an appointment and hop on. I'm happy to do whatever helps. That's truly why I got into healthcare, was to help people. And I want to help all of you be successful in not only your health and wellness journey, but those who you invite to become a part of the family.
Perfect. And we're going to be doing a lot of these meetings as we grow, and we're going to be doing a GLP-1 meeting at least once a week for now, if not twice a week, you know, in the next few weeks. So next time
If there's ever anything that you guys need to be more successful, let Jason or myself know, and we'll help get that to the best of our ability. We'll help get that in place for you guys to be successful.
For sure. Great question on my husband is currently on Ozempic prescribed by his primary physician. If he does this program, the ConnectMD primary doctors would manage his care for GLP. Correct. We would just take over.
Can I explain this video? Or can I create a video? That's up to you guys. I always think that it's a little bit more successful when it's live, but I'm happy to do some videos of how these medicines work, just kind of a brief 5-minute overview to maybe get people into sitting and listening to one of these live Zooms, because I think that kind of seals the deal, and then patients are going to want, or potential patients or clients are going to want, sorry if I say patients, it's just a force of habit. I'm sorry. Potential customers or clients, if they want to join, then we can just kind of turn that over to you. I will always say get with the person that invited you to this video to get their link to sign up, and be able to help you augment and really help support your business.
And somebody just brought to my attention, Lori did, and I wanted to go over this. You do not have to use the GLP-1 products to be a member of ConnectMD Fit. You can pay your $200 a month and get coaching by Andrea and get all the stuff that you're going to need and be a part of the community. So you do not have to take the GLP-1 products if you want to join ConnectMD Fit.
There's a lot of people out there who don't provide any support and community for their people that might be getting GLP-1 somewhere else. So they would just love to be a part of something like this, and they already have that prescription, you know, elsewhere is what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things that, you know, like I said, like Sherry brought up, we use a lot of supplements with our patients and things like that. And it makes the difference from losing just a couple pounds a month to losing a lot of weight in a healthy manner every month. And it just gives people an overall better health and wellness experience. So we're going to talk about all of those things. I'm really excited. We're going to talk a lot about nutrition and things like that as well. So
Good. And then just to let you know, ConnectMD is going to be coming out with its own line of products after the first of the year, and Andrea is going to be very, very instrumental in choosing those, especially for the weight loss, the ConnectMD Fit, and just overall wellness for ConnectMD. And all those products will be commissionable. So anybody else have any last minute questions?
Bella's asking how to connect with me. How do you want to handle that? Again, I'm not going to treat people, but I'm happy to answer vague general questions. There's a fine line when you're a provider of providing care and just talking in general. But I can give you my email. I can type it down in the message. A lot of people find me on social media.
I think for everybody to keep in mind that Andrea is in the group for support. Like, we wouldn't necessarily want to use her on a one-on-one prospecting basis to have her have to talk to everybody. Like, she wouldn't have the time of day to be able to do that for everybody. So she would hate to say she can't talk to everybody. I know she would love to, but like a group setting is more ideal for her time.
Yes, absolutely. And if you have I wouldn't try to get on
And we
it.
could, I wonder if we could have like an email or some kind of a platform where people from week to week could email in their questions as they think of them, and then we can take time at the end of the meeting or whatever to address those. Because I'm sure if you have the question, 10 other people are going to have the same question. So instead of answering it 10 times, we can just answer it once. But
Sure. And I think just jumping on these meetings and people have, in the chat asking questions, I'm sure that will suffice too, because we know your time is extremely valuable. And you, besides being on corporate at ConnectMD, you also have your own practice. So we want to be mindful of that. All right, guys, any last minute questions before we go? Because we've been on for an hour and I know your guys' time is valuable. If you live in Florida, I know AJ does. Whoever lives in Florida, please be safe. And there was one last, will we receive an email of the cost again? I'm not sure.
of like the breakdown of
That is in, are you an agent with us? You can unmute. Okay, it's in the resource center. So if you want to tell me what you're on now, I'll tell you how much it is. Is that bound? Is that tirzepatide?
Yeah. It depends on the milligrams, your doses, if it's 5 or 7.5 or 10. That would be between the 5 milligram and the 7.5. So that would be between you and your provider, whether you wanted to go down to 5 milligrams or up to 7.5.
So it'd be 210. You pay 400 now? Yeah, that's what I thought. So 210, so half of what you're paying now. Plus you get to be a part of the membership and get all the coaching and community. Perfect. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much. And big round of applause to Andrea. She's unbelievable. Thank you so much for taking time out. And we will do this call again Thursday night, Andrea?
Yep, sounds good.
Thursday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central. I will send out an email, invite other people. So thank you, and we will see you guys later. And this I will actually